This is why we ought to thank God that there's a man named Jesus. Because without Jesus, without a man telling you that you have to be born again in order to see the kingdom of heaven, without a man offering you a way out of the curse of your father, you would have no hope at all. I represent hope. I represent mercy. Hope not only for the black and the brown and the native people, but hope for the whites as well. You say, why hope for them? Since they have murdered so many on the earth, why would you offer them hope and not the destruction that God has promised? The Bible says you don't blame the clay. You blame the potter. And if the potter has shaped the clay into a rebellious nature, then they have been themselves more than we have been ourselves. So they have a hope to get out of the shape that the potter shaped them in, because they also have become potters. And you and I and we have been in their hands like pieces of clay. And they have shaped us into niggers, shaped us into coons and colored people, shines and ham bones, whores and pimps. You are shaped as a homosexual. You are shaped as a lesbian. So a potter has had you in their hands. They have us in their schools and they shape us. They have our mothers and they've shaped our mothers. You sit in front of the television all day long, being shaped by the funk and the filth of the world. You are a shaped people. They were shaped in an ugly form, and then they turned around and shaped the people of God in an ugly form. Now God comes. He said, I will break the form that they shaped you in, but I will offer them hope that I can break the form that their father shaped them in. That's the value of Jesus Christ. That's the value of the Messiah. That's the value of the Mahdi. That's the value of the presence and the coming of God. Now let's go on. When they went into the hills or were driven cable tow, 2,200 miles across the Arabian desert, we took away from them everything except the language and drove them into the hills and cave sides of Europe. EU, R-O-P-E. This prefix EU means hillsides and caves. And rope is the rope to bind in. And when they got into Europe, they lost the knowledge of themselves and fell down on their all fours and became a savage people. So when you read the history of how the Caucasian has come up from a caveman It is a marvelous history of evolution. Those that lived in the caves of Europe, the caves were facing the north, so the sun rose in the east, came around to the south, and settled in the west. But the man who was in the cave facing north, the further back in the cave he went, the darkness and the dampness of the cave produced more hair on his body. Just like you, if you put a cast on your leg because your leg got broken or your arm got broken, with no sunlight, no vitamin D, you'll find when you take the cast off, a whole lot of hair has grown. The Caucasian went into the caves of Europe and he was befriended by the dog. So in the Holy Quran, in the 18th surah called the cave, it talks about how the people of the cave made the dog their friend. And this is why Caucasian people will say to you today that the dog is man's best friend. Lie! Lie! God is man's best friend. All praise is due to Allah. All praise is due to Allah. Now, today a dog has more value in American society than the black man or the Native American or the Hispanic. They'll stop and pick up a dog in the street, sit the dog down at the table and let the dog eat with them, but will murder you if you're found in their neighborhood in the wrong time at the wrong place. A dog has more value because they domesticated the dog, and the dog became their friend. And there they were in the caves of Europe, sometimes growing tails. I've got pictures of this. They grew little tails. And even today, some of the children are born with tails. And they operate, cut them off. But that's nothing to be ashamed of. That you came from a cave to become Lord and Master of the earth, of the sea, and of the air. But how did you get to be Lord and Master of the earth, of the sea, and of the air? You could never have done it in your condition, losing the knowledge of yourself, not able to bury your dead. Your dead would die and lay there in the cave with you, rotten and stink. You didn't know how to cook your food. You didn't know how to build. But God turned merciful and sent Moses up in the cave. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so shall the Son of Man be lifted up.